But what I want to try and do is focus on this area and take you guys through a close-up of how I go through, what I pick, what I cut, how I approach it. Now you can see already a nice big heavy wire on there, which was just anchoring this around this branch, anchors this around the tree, and helps me with this branch here. So I'll put the heavy wire on. Now I'll do the next layer. Now I go through this tree, I go through this branch, wiring it through. So I start, usually what happens is, always what I do actually, is I start with the next gauge down. So this was the heaviest gauge. Now I'll look for the branches that are the next heaviest and wire them, and then keep going down until I get to the fine branches that I'm going to wire. That's what I do. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right. That's what I do. I find it's the easiest process to follow, but that's me. All right, so we're going to come up in close and let's see how it looks on the. All right, now you can see the fullness of this branch. It looks like a big, huge cloud, but that's not what we want to try and achieve. Now, let me try and open up certain areas so you can see a few things. Let's hope it works. What I'll try and show you is I'll usually start towards the closest. Can you see this branch? In this branch, that's probably the next heaviest branch. Let me try and move some foliage out of the way. So that branch there, that's probably the next heaviest. So I'll look for, there's some smaller stuff up here which is not that heavy, so I'm leaving those alone at the moment. So I'll look for that. That's probably the heaviest branch. Now I'll look for the next one further down, which is probably this. It's kind of, they're close together, that and that. So I'll probably wire those two together. Okay, so that's my first approach. I'll wire those two together. Now I just want to show you something quickly. I'll try and zoom in this section here. See this little foliage here? It's growing in between the branches. That's called the crotch growth. If you ever heard me referring to crotch growth, that's growing in the crotch of the branches. So I'll remove that as I go along. So I'll just pluck those out and get rid of it. So it's gone. So that's a crotch growth branch. Now, another thing I want to show you. So for example, up here, there's some finer stuff up here that looks very fine and not that heavy, but it's important to keep these because this is the back budding that's happening on this branch, which is really important. You want to have a bit of back budding, and if I see something like that, I would leave it. They're nice and thin, they're young and they're growing. So I would leave it for now because it's important to get the back budding. So that's how I identify. So I've identified two branches there that are similar in size that will be wiring together, and they're reasonably close together. Now I'll keep going along and I'll see there's some more. This is some more towards the tip. There's more heavier branches because they're obviously at the tips, and that's so this branch here will need to be wired with that. So that maybe those two will be wired together. Then this one and this one. Can you see that? That one and that one will be wired together. So you saw the big one, the heavy one. There's a heavy one there, and there's a heavy one here. So that's how I'd go through. Identify which branches I'm going to start to wire together, and I'll go and wire it. Okay, so very important wiring those. Just so again, let me just show you something else. Oh, I don't know if I can get this in the camera. So there's another crotch growth in there between the big branches. So, no, I probably can't get that one in the shot. See that? See how it's growing in the crotch? Again, something to remove. I could probably have to cut that one off. Now, the other things I identify also is, I'll just show you something here. See how nice, healthy, or nice, bushy, healthy growth? And then there's branches like this. See that? See this branch here? Absolutely useless. Okay, so cut that off. That's why you can identify as you're going through the tree. You don't have to wait until you wire it, but certain things like that you can quickly eliminate. So now, as I said to you, I'll be wiring. Very important to note, wire similar sized branches. So that's my first attempt. Then I'll go through and wire everything else. Now I'm going to go away and do all the wiring because you guys don't want to watch me wire, but that's how I approach it. So look for similar sized branches, thickest first. I always do the thickest first. So probably these two will be the first ones I do because they're really heavy. See those really heavy ones? And then I'll work my way to the smaller ones, and then to the tips, they'll get really, really fine wire. Okay, that's how I approach it, and then I'll show you with this branch how we're going to fan it out and drop branches and move things around and clean up the foliage, etc. Alright, let's see how this goes. This is the same branch, it's fully wired. The only things I've done is take out crotch growth, as I mentioned to you. I've also, anything that was physically growing downwards that I would never use in the design, I've taken off. So that's why it looks a little bit more sparse. I've wired every pretty much branch. Hopefully I haven't missed any. Now that's the thing I want to explain to people. When you want to wire trees and you design trees, wire everything. Don't just wire the main branch or even the secondary. Wire the tertiary branches as well. Like in an initial design, you want to wire everything so you don't have anything out of place. So by doing that, you're going to have a complete tree. You've completed the design fully, not, oh, I've got to come back later when that's a bit bigger or so on and so forth. This way you do it all in one go. All right, now I don't know how this will work out, but we'll try and see how we go with this. So this is the branch on the right. We'll zoom out later and have a look. First really is you want to position the main branch, the whole main branch. So the thickest wire was on it. I think it's a 5 or 6 mil wire, probably 6 mil. And that just needs to be positioned in a way that you're happy with. Mine's coming, so it goes down and comes down into this form. So it flows this way and downwards. I put a kind of a little bit of a move this way, so it kind of points to the front. You'll see that bit later. But that's the main bit of position because it needs a bit of force to do. So I position that in place. Now I'll go back through the tree, and now it's going to be hard while I try and work. Is I come back to the first branch that I was working on. All right, so this was the one out here. So it's actually a little bit long. Like I'll show you how it's straight. So I don't want it so long, I want it kind of compacted. So let's try and move it backwards and come a bit this way. So by putting bends in it, I'm shortening the branch. Now it has a little branch up here, which is great, like it's going to form another little piece. But by doing that, I've just shortened the branch, maybe a little bit, about this much. But I've shortened it, made it a bit more interesting, and now we've got these branches we want to try and create a little layer. So I have a very good video that shows a bit more close up of this. It's my thumbnail video, I guess. When you go to my channel, it's the top video. It's one of my more popular ones that shows you how to exactly do these little pads. So I'm trying to make a little fan shape with these. And you notice how I just keep plucking little bits. So once I finish positioning it, there's little ones that are hanging down that I just pluck off. Okay. Now I don't know. You see how the little fan? I'll just show you it. See how it's a little fan shape. So in a way, it drops down and pushes up, and then you create a nice little pad like that. Does that kind of make sense? Hopefully. And then just follow the same pattern the further up you go the tree. So I'm doing the same thing. Just create another little one over here, a little pad. See how there's two now? One here and one here, one there and one there. Cool. Now this one I will have to have a look at it. So when you actually look at a tree front on, it's a bit different. So just by looking front on, I've tweaked it a little bit. So I've got a branch here. Now I've got this branch here. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with just yet, but for now I'm going to push it back and create another layer. It looks like there's almost like a back bud. This is back budded in, and create another layer in there. Do you see that, how it's 2 layers now? I'll just fix it up and I'll show you a bit better. And by doing that, you can see the layers that I've just created. Layer, layer. Okay, that's the kind of thing I'll be going through throughout the tree. So that's pretty much what I'll be doing, and then I'll keep going. I'll always be adjusting, because sometimes I want to drop branches a bit lower or a bit higher, move them up a bit more. So now I've got to make space for this branch or this branch. Yeah, so that's how I go about doing it. There's now, I guess what some challenges occur, right? There's a branch up here. So it's branch here. It's the next one along, but it's a bit high. But then I've got this low branch here, that what I could do is bring it into this spot here. It's a bit more forward. This is more the directional left branch. And this will then be the lower branch. Then I can drop this into that gap here. So it's now positioning things to layer them. It's really a bit of being creative, a bit of moving things around, but that's what I'm going to pretty much be doing, and you can have a look. I'll do a little time-lapse video on how I go and position these branches. So I hope that time lapse gave you a reasonable view of how much work's involved. Probably about 15 minutes work just to tweak all those and put them into place. It's a nice little rough styling, but you can see see how many different layers there are. A little bit still unclean underneath, but I'll get to that. But I just want to really show you that by fanning out the branches, spacing them out, moving and tweaking trying to find different levels and layers. That's how you create the layers. Find different levels. If you find a gap, fill it with something, then somewhere else, fill another gap, and off it goes. And you can kind of see the layers, yeah? This almost forms like a much more refined levels. Now, eventually what happens, I know it looks a bit rough now, but what happens is each of these areas fluffs up, really gets nice and full of foliage. And that's how you create those pads and clouds, much more refined look. Not the whole one big cloud. Now I've got multiple smaller clouds of foliage. And that's how it should be developed. That's how I think of it needing to be developed. And it looks much better. It becomes more fuller, and it looks a lot better rather than one big huge thing that doesn't look like anything much. So by just moving things around, probably have a little tweak here and there, a few other branches I just noticed, but you get the idea.